I looked forward to one very specific event when I was little in December. I woke up and carefully checked the newspaper's TV schedule to make sure we were still on for 7 p.m. I scarfed down dinner, sped through a 2-minute shower, and brushed my teeth while putting my pajamas on. Then, with great intentionality, I would select one of my 2 plastic tiaras. I went with my usual, the silver one that had a massive blue sapphire in the middle. After placing it on my head, just so, I tiptoed to the living room and sat, crisscross applesauce, in front of our 13-inch Panasonic TV. Everyone knew not to interrupt me. Nutcracker was on PBS. I adored the party scene and its historical costumes, and definitely cheered for the Nutcracker to defeat Mouse King in the fight scene. But the best part for me was always the magical, beautiful costumes worn by the ballerinas, the tutus. From the sparkly snowflakes and snow scene to Clara's regal ensemble in the Land of Sweets, I was captivated. And not much has changed, honestly. I'm just as giddy about them now as I was back then. My name is Jenna Anderson, and I am a tutu fanatic. They have given everything to me, and in many ways, I've given up everything for them. Without tutus, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur, I wouldn't be here in Winston-Salem, or possibly even alive. I'm going to take you on a deep dive into how tutus have helped me live out my daily mantra: stay true to yourself and rise above. A pancake tutu, what most people associate with classical ballet, is made up of 10 to 12 layers of net sewn to a knicker, or a piece of underwear. It's really hard to ignore them because they stand out, literally, wherever they go. While the audience oohs and ahs at all the decorations and sparkles, that top decorated layer would not be so impressive without all the other layers. Those underlayers are what truly make a tutu a tutu. Our personal journeys have a lot of layers that are hidden underneath the sparkle, and they're not always pretty, pristine, or perfect, but together, they make us who we are. Before I became a tutu maker, the first thing I would look at were the decorations. Now the first thing I look at, whether you're a tutu or a person, is the layers, because that is the foundation everything is built on. And there is profound beauty there that is very rarely acknowledged. As early as I can remember, I knew I was different. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and we were born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. All of us were homeschooled, from kindergarten through high school. My typical day consisted of satellite TV programs, practicing piano, and watching ballet videos on this new website called YouTube. Despite living in one of the most diverse areas of the United States, we were very much in our own little bubble. It was almost like a badge of honor to be considered different. Ballet, and tutus specifically, embodied a phrase that I grew up with: be in the world, but not of the world. Tutus were real, but ethereal. You could look, but not touch. I found comfort in how mysterious and misunderstood they were, that in many ways, their whole purpose was to stand out, kind of like me. But as I grew older and my siblings left home, I went from feeling special and unique to isolated and alone. Not many people look at a tutu and say, yeah, nothing unusual here, carry on. Most of the time their reaction is, what is it? How does this thing make sense? And I saw that reaction, but towards me, and became severely depressed. Standing out wasn't working out. When I turned 18, I was admitted to a mental hospital for several suicide attempts. But thankfully, that was the biggest turning point of my life. I decided in my hospital room that I wanted to pursue one specific goal: making ballet tutus for the Royal Ballet in London. A very normal life decision. I know. I was ecstatic about it. But not everybody was on board. When I made my dream of tutu making public, my uncle sat me down for breakfast and yelled at me, telling me I was stupid for thinking something as worthless as tutus could bring anything to the world. The only way to make a difference was to go into politics or hold public office, he said. And there was a part of me, and I think many creatives, that wondered if he was right. What was I thinking? But my gut told me differently. It said I would regret not pursuing London. I had to make a decision. Do I stay in my safe, sheltered community? Or do I risk going out into the big, scary, evil world for tutus? I decided to pursue my tutu dream, stay true to myself, and rise above. I immediately started cold calling. My first call was to Travis Halsey, a theater designer in Chicago. My hands and my voice were shaking. Hi, can I speak to Travis? Yeah, this is Travis. How's it going? Great. Are you taking interns or internships? Sure, why not? Send me your portfolio. So I sent him my portfolio, and he invited me to come to work with him in Chicago. I told my mom and dad that same night that I was moving. You don't have any money, they said. You're going to be homeless. Then I'll be homeless, I said. I had to go. I had to try. Everything was going to be new, regardless of what I did in life. So, in 2016, at the age of 22, I moved to Chicago to pursue tutus. I didn't know anyone or much about anything when I was in Chicago. I quickly had to put aside my embarrassment, accept the fact that I was different, and ask others to help educate me in the ways of the world. I didn't know much about anything, but surprisingly, everybody embraced me there. Chicago was also where I faced my biggest hardship: homelessness. I distinctly remember standing on the side of the road in downtown Chicago on my birthday with my bag, a dress form, and a tutu. And I was crying, but I was also smiling, because if this was rock bottom, the only way I could go was up, right? Somehow I was still optimistic about the future, but I knew that I couldn't continue this journey on my own. So I cold called the UNCSA dance costume shop, and I became their first ever apprentice in 2017. After working with them for 1 year, they encouraged me to apply for school at UNCSA. And the imposter syndrome hit very hard. I had barely passed the high school proficiency exam and had just started realizing that AP English was in fact not a dialect of the English language. Incredible. I didn't think I was smart enough to go to college. Who would care about a 26-year-old tutu-obsessed homeschooler? Apparently, they did, and I was accepted into their costuming program. With the exception of some community college courses, UNCSA was my first ever formal education. One of the highlights of college for me was definitely riding a school bus for the first time at age 27. Thank you. I was surrounded by young, motivated talent at school, but it turns out I don't want to sit in the corner of a New York City apartment developing a hunchback, or working in a workshop in Russia, stitching pleats onto a piece of underwear for 8 hours a day. Sewing was my passion, but it wasn't my calling. So I asked my peers, what do you think is missing from the creative industry? And the common thread was leadership. We needed creative leaders, people who, by their nature, weren't afraid to do things differently. And I realized I could do that by embracing the essence of the tutu. I could make change by standing out and being different. Maybe my uncle was wrong. Tutus could change the world, and my gut knew exactly what we had to do. Now was the time to pursue London. So, once again, I cold called. I sent a message through Instagram to a dancer at the Royal Ballet and asked if she would like her own custom tutu. I was shaking when I hit send, but she said yes a couple of hours later, and I had the happiest anxiety attack I have ever had in my entire life. My hospital room dream was becoming a reality. In March 2022, I went over to London, England, and made a custom tutu for principal dancer of the Royal Ballet, Yasmin Nagdi. I got to tour the Royal Opera House, saw Yasmin perform, and got much of my design inspiration from jewelry at the Victoria and Albert Museum. Much of the tutu itself was constructed in a tiny apartment bedroom in the Finchley district of London. I was living my dream. At least, I thought I was. When I came back last April, something wasn't sitting right with me. Instead of feeling invigorated from London, I was mentally and emotionally paralyzed. What was I without the goal of London? What had defined me, inspired me, and drove me to leave every comfort I had ever known had been accomplished about 3 decades ahead of schedule. I had gone through every starving artist scenario imaginable for a single goal and kept going and going and going, jumping from one risk to the other, being homeless, lacking any sense of security, hoping, moving, cold calling, reinventing myself constantly as an outsider trying to get in somewhere, anywhere. I had fulfilled my dream, but I had lost my identity. I would look in my mirror and see a stranger with empty eyes staring back at me. Stay true to yourself and rise above? What does that even mean when you don't know who you are anymore? The world of tutus and my personal journey were colliding. With the help of my mentor, I dug real deep and faced some very honest truths. I can't stay in the past. If I don't evolve, if tutus don't evolve, we will never fulfill our true potential. How do we keep a beautiful craft like tutu making going into the future? How do I continue to grow? I kept on thinking about one of the final steps of tutu construction, tacking. Tacking is when you take many thread loops and stitch all the layers of the tutu together so that they act in unison. Instead of each layer acting independently, they work together to support the top decorated layer. What, besides tutus, tacked my layers together? My messy, strange, and somewhat unique layers have been tacked together through creative leadership and entrepreneurship, collaborating, building bridges, paving the path so that others can continue to grow and rise above. I loved making the tutu for Yasmin, but the biggest London highlight for me was experiencing Yasmin finding her voice in a new way, even as a principal dancer at one of the top ballet companies in the world. I started realizing that London didn't have to be a one-time thing. we can continue giving others the opportunity to find their voices and dream bigger. There are still so many firsts to go after, even with Tutus. London wasn't the end. It really is just the beginning. I encourage you to find your own tutu, that purpose that tacks all of your layers together and emboldens you to be in the world, but not of the world. Build the reality that you want, even when you're homeless and on the streets. Create the community that you envision, locally and abroad. Don't be embarrassed to ask for help. And embrace the unknown with all of its discomfort. Others will not always see your worth, but you can always find value in yourself. No matter your background or lack of it, no matter how strange your ambitions, dreams, and goals may seem to others, or maybe even to you, stay true to yourself and rise above.